Hey there, welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology for April 3rd through the 9th. We have a full moon this week, and we also have Mercury changing signs and initiating a premonition into some changes and transitions that will be happening over the next month or so. So I'm very excited to share the astrology of this week with you so that you can make the most out of it. I'm Shawna McGrath. I'm an astrologer, an intuitive, and a coach. And so this week we have a full moon in Libra. That's happening on Wednesday, the 5th of April at 9:34 p.m. Pacific time. A full moon is a time of illumination. It's a time of becoming more conscious, light associated with conscious, becoming more conscious of our emotions, which is the moon. The moon is also a symbol of our subjective mind and our early unconscious patterning. I also really see the moon as a symbol of our attachment style and how we connect and relate with others whom we are most intimate with. Whether that is family or romantic or friends. It's those people it's the way that we connect when we become very close with someone. And we know that relationships are complicated and nuanced, and that people activate different parts of us. From an astrological standpoint, this is known as synastry, where there's a part of your chart and your makeup psychologically that is connecting in with another person's chart and their psychological makeup. And so we bring different things out in each other. And so when we have a full moon, some of those things that have been kind of running in the background become more present, and we can see more clearly. Now, oftentimes this can be kind of uncomfortable, or it can feel like a rush of emotions, or simply that your emotions are more heightened, that you maybe feel more sensitive. And so that may be felt throughout this whole week, but I find it's usually the days leading up to the full moon and the day of the full moon. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe days where you're just feeling a lot more. And this full moon being in the sign of Libra, it is connected to relationships. It's connected to our sense of aesthetic, what we find beautiful, what we find pleasing, and how we respond to beauty in our environment, whether that is what we find beautiful in ourselves or what we find beautiful around us. This full moon is also connecting us back to Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Libra. And right now we have Venus in Taurus with Uranus. And so this is a very strong Venus, because Venus likes being in Taurus. It also rules the sign of Taurus. And so Venus has a lot of capacity to give us the resources that we need to deepen into our social connections. And with Uranus there, with Venus, there's a desire to kind of like try something new, change things up. Uranus and Venus together, there's a love for novelty. There's a love for trying new things. And there's a love for having a sense of independence and freedom while being in relationship. So some of those themes may come up this week. And the biggest thing is that we're also still in this growth, this symbolic growth phase of the moon. So whenever we have a waxing moon or a full moon, it is a good time to take action, initiate new things, and it's a time of furthering and developing projects. So I want you to keep that in mind, that even though the full moon happens on Wednesday, that we still have that growth-oriented energy through the whole week. Now, the other thing that's happening this week is Mercury moves into Taurus. And so there's a couple of different things that happen with this that I want to break down. So Mercury moving from Aries into Taurus. Mercury is our thought process, our analytical thought style, communication, contracts, marketing, business. Mercury is also a symbol of transitioning and moving from one place to another. Mercury is a symbol of crossing over a threshold or a boundary, or being in two places at once. It has that kind of the paradox sort of energy. Mercury is the only planet that can be known as a benefic or a malefic in the more traditional astrologies. So typically we have Mars and Saturn as the malefics, the more challenging energies, and then we have Jupiter and Venus as the benefics. And usually the sun and the moon are benefics as well, depending on the system. But anyways, Mercury it's kind of like both. It can go either way. It can be many different things. And so with this movement from Aries is very much about being direct, initiating, taking action, and moving forward without having all of the details necessarily. It's like moving from inspiration, whereas Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So it's one of the most sturdy and stable and stabilizing signs. So Mercury moving into Taurus, there is a stabilizing around communication. There's a stabilizing around business. There's a stabilizing around our thought process. And Mercury is going to be here in Taurus for a little bit longer than it normally is, because Mercury will go retrograde in Taurus in April and May. So this is just so that you have those dates to mark in your calendar. Mercury will be retrograde in Taurus from April 21st through May 14th. And so there's a so I want you to set aside for a moment. Let's all just take this idea that Mercury retrograde is bad and harmful. We're just going to set that over here. And we're going to come to Mercury retrograde fresh. So Mercury retrograde is a period of reviewing, yes, and also like retooling and revising and reflecting on things. We think of it as an introverted energy. And so this area of life, Taurus kind of things, Taurus is focused on our material stability, our material resources. Depending on where Taurus is in your chart, it's going to mean something very specific to you. And so we have this opportunity to go back and reflect and think about and even make changes to our sense of practical security, the physical things that we have in our lives. And Taurus is also associated with beauty as well, like what we find comfortable and pleasing. And so that's a part of this process. Now, the other piece of this too is that Mercury is going to square Pluto right as it moves into Taurus. Now, this aspect is something that's Mercury square Pluto. It's more happening this week. It's not necessarily connected in with the whole retrograde. And so the way that I see this happening is Pluto is about confronting the shadow, confronting the things that we either don't like about ourselves or that we reject in ourselves for whatever reason as a protective measure. So there may be a confrontation with something that is either like a shadow material, something that you've rejected about yourself, or maybe you learn something new and you have this insight about yourself, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that you know, I am this way, or that I have this quality. Or it could be having an experience where it's kind of like an intense emotional experience, because Pluto is associated with intensity. We want to keep in mind this is happening during a full moon week as well. And so I want you to, as much as you can, if there's something that you feel like is emotionally triggering, or where it feels like you're having a strong emotional reaction, Pluto has strong emotional reactions, or there's something that you're like ruminating on, I want you to see if you can slow things down and start to get really curious about what it is that really bothers you about this situation or this person. The more that we are like instinctually, the more that we're instinctually repulsed by something, or the more that we have a knee-jerk reaction to something that is kind of like outside of the norm, so to speak, the more likely that there is some kind of shadow material there, maybe something that was rejected, or maybe that it's tapping into an experience that we had that was very painful or even somewhat traumatic. And so, you know, I'm not sharing this to freak you out or to say that something bad is going to happen, but I want you to be noticing for Plutonian type experiences where you have a strong emotional reaction. And when we have those, the medicine for that is to get really curious and to look at, oh, like, that's really interesting that I like really don't like that, or this really bothers me, and I wonder why that is. And there's something magical that happens in that process where when we get curious, that helps us understand, and it also kind of like untangles the knot of emotional intensity. The other piece of this too is that as Mercury squares Pluto, it's also going to be making a helpful sextile to Mars and Saturn. And so it feels like there's some good, helpful energy for like restructuring things and making some changes, and making changes that you can also maybe things that you may want to look at as Mercury goes retrograde in April and May. Okay, so let's pull some cards for you. So I'm pulling 3 cards, and you can choose a number between 1 and 3, or you can accept all 3 of these as one unified message. I did want to mention too that we are having eclipses in April and May. So I'll talk more about those in future videos, but just to mark on your calendar and in your psyche is we're having an eclipse on April 19th in Aries. So that's new moon solar eclipse, April 19th in Aries. And then May 5th, we're having a full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So more on that in future. Okay, we really like these. So card number 1 is the Ace of Cups. I'm using the traditional Smith-Waite deck. And the Ace of Cups is a new emotional beginning. The imagery in this card has this hand coming out from the clouds, and it's holding this golden cup, and there's water overflowing from the cup into an ocean with lily pads, and there's this white bird that's diving into the cup. So to me, this card is emotional renewal. It can also be emotional healing and sort of like a reset. Or you know what this card makes me think of right now is, have you ever you cried and you were sad and you cried, and then afterwards you felt better? That's what this card feels like to me. That feeling, that moment of fresh renewal after the tears, or sort of like the emotional release. I'm not saying that necessarily needs to happen, but I'm kind of like, it feels like that feeling, that fresh, renewed feeling. Cups are associated with emotions, but they're also associated with relationships. And so it could be a renewal or even a new relationship. Second card is the Nine of Pentacles. This is such a beautiful, auspicious card for financial success and for financial security. This feels connected into the Taurus energy that we were talking about. So 9 of Pentacles, it has this image of a person in a garden, and the person is wearing this really lovely gown, and they have an eagle on their arm. 9 of Pentacles is about having your needs met. It's about financial success. It's about worldly success. And it's about having a lifestyle that you love, that's comfortable. I would even say a lifestyle of leisure. And it's also usually connected into the work that we need to do in order to have the lifestyle that we want. And so if this card is especially speaking to you, I would wonder, what is it? What are the sacrifices that you're making for the life that you want? And are those sacrifices appropriate? Is it too much, not enough? How does it feel right now? Does it feel like you're making too many sacrifices to have this lifestyle that you want? And then the third card is the Knight of Wands. So this card is about acting very quickly upon action, upon instincts and passion. I pulled it upright, so it doesn't necessarily, sometimes the Knight cards can be, sometimes they can be a caution against acting too quickly or against acting rashly. I'm not feeling that from here. You know what comes up for you is appropriate as I'm doing these, but this feels more like there's a new emotional insight or a new emotional experience that's connected with the kind of life that you want to live, a life that feels like you have financial security or comfort in your life, but that it's very connected to your physical comfort. And then you can move forward on that. Then there's like this, when you have that sense of stability, that then there is passion and you can move forward. So maybe right now it feels like things are a little bit unclear. That's like the ace. The ace is when we don't really know what's going on. I think we had an ace last week too, a different one. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you resonate with me and my work, I would love to do an astrology reading for you. You can find out more info on my website. I'll have that below. And I'm sending you lots of love and wishing you a wonderful week. Bye.